Welcome back. In this video, we'll be cold molding the curved transom. And notice right off the bat that I have added gussets to the frame. We start by milling out the transom skin from a 1/4 inch Meranti marine plywood. And then we cut out each of the laminate components of the frame. I marked the center of the transom skin to properly align it to the curved jig. I mount the transom skin to the curved jig with a combination of double stick tape and clamps. I drill additional holes for clamps through the curved jig along the edge of the transom skin. I mark the center of the laminate frame components and ensure that they are properly laying on top of each other. I then drill a small hole through the center of the laminates. Placing a screw through the center hole will help with both clamping and component alignment. Once the laminates are clamped to the curved jig, I add additional screws for alignment and clamping. Now we're ready to cold mold the top side laminate. I use polyethylene sheeting to protect the transom skin and the jig from excess epoxy. I coat each of the laminate components with unfilled epoxy, and then with colloidal silica thickened epoxy. I carefully drive the screws back through the holes in each of the laminates. Then I attach the laminate to the curved jig and transom skin with screws and clamps. After about 4 hours, I remove the screws so they don't end up permanently bonded to the transom jig. The next morning, with the epoxy fully cured, I remove all the clamps. I then repeat the process with the bottom side laminate. Again, I start with unthickened epoxy, Notice I have a mixture of Meranti marine plywood and regular marine plywood. Unfortunately, I didn't know that there was Meranti plywood when I started this project. If I were to start over, I would suggest always use Meranti or Sapele or mahogany plywood. Next, we move to the colloidal silica thickened epoxy. While I believe you only need to put the thickened epoxy on one of the mating surfaces, sometimes I just do it on both. Again, after about 4 hours, I remove the screws so they don't end up permanently bonded to the jig. And the next morning, I can remove all the clamps. I repeat the same procedure for the side frame components. I again remove the screws after about 4 hours, and the next day I trim the excess material off the frame laminates with, I guess I'll call this a jigsaw. I didn't know I owned this saw, as it was in a box of clamps that I got from a friend's father. Despite the age of this saw, it did the trick, but it did heat up so much that I had to put gloves on in order to hold it. I finished cleaning up the frame laminates on the sander. Since the right and left side of the transom should be symmetric, I marked to ensure that the side frames were the same length. After cleaning up each of the boards, I used the Shaper Origin to cut domino-like tenons out of the sapele lumber. and then I cut the accompanying mortise in each of the mating surfaces of the frame components. I cut the mortises 1/100th of an inch wider than the tenon to make room for epoxy. I also cut them about 3/100ths of an inch deeper than the tenon. I plan to make a short video detailing this process in the near future, but I didn't want to take the time in this video today. Now it's time to permanently bond the frame components together. I first wet each surface with knead epoxy. The tenons fit so tightly into the mortise holes that there was no need to add thickened epoxy. However, I did use thickened epoxy to fill the gaps between the frame components, and this time I used a high density filler. As you can see here, I didn't add enough of the high density filler to thicken the epoxy, but later in the process I added additional high density filler to get to about the consistency of mayonnaise. To achieve tight joints between each of the frame components required a lot of clamping. And as you'll see, I tried but really struggled to get this done. In the end, I decided to add gussets to each of the joints. I cut the gussets out of the 1/4 inch Meranti plywood. It's important that the gussets are thin, as they're going to have to bend to the curved shape of the frame. I bonded the gussets to the frame components with unthickened and then thickened epoxy. And then fasten the gussets to the frame with silicone bronze screws. In addition to providing long-term strength to the joints, clamps can be attached to the gussets to bring the joints tightly together. After letting the epoxy cure overnight, it's time to trim the gussets. The transom skin should not be permanently bonded to the frame at this point. Therefore, it's optional to dry assemble with screws, as I am doing here. Well, that completes the transom. Till next time, cheers!